Many of you have acknowledged how much of a struggle it is to find speech therapy services. Either you want more or you want some at all. Today, I'm going to address why. What is going on in speech pathology? How this impacts you? And what you can do about it. I will address what is going on in the United States. And if you're a listener from one of the other 191 countries that currently is listening to this podcast, I encourage you to tell me what is happening in your country. I'm eager to know. Does your child have a speech-language delay and you really want them to talk? Do difficult behaviors derail home life and you know the frustration is a communication struggle? Does your child see a speech therapist and you wonder, what do they do and how can I help? If these or similar questions are in your mind, this podcast is for you. Hello, my name is Dinalynn Rosenbusch. I am a speech-language pathologist that has worked with children from birth to 21 for 3 decades. And in my classrooms, I see you wanting to connect with the heart of your child, but their speech and language skills create a barrier. So if you have a kiddo that has difficult behaviors, needs to expand their language or learn to say speech sounds, and maybe even receives speech therapy, stay tuned, because in this podcast, you will learn how to use your daily life as a tool to communication practice and how to do that practice. You will become confident knowing you are making the difference you want to make. And you will hear success stories of parents who have navigated these struggles already. We'll do this all while focusing on building deep, meaningful connection and confidence in your kiddo. So grab a cup of coffee along with a notebook and pen. It's time to speak in the way your child's brain understands. And that is the language of play. Welcome back. I'm saying that as much to you as I am for me. The last few episodes I pre-recorded because I went out of town. I had an enormously wonderful opportunity to speak at a convention called PodFest. At this convention, there were many podcasters, including some really big name influencers, and that was just very fun. One of the things that was super fun is that there was no hierarchy between who was a big name and those of us that have been doing this for a shorter period of time. I got to learn from amazing speakers and even dance with Forbes Riley. So I want to put a pitch out there. If any of you ever think about starting a podcast on one of the topics in your life that you're passionate about, this is just a great place. Contact me if you have any questions about this event. It is absolutely fabulous, and it was fun and very, very warm and welcoming. So that was PodFest Expo 2025. For the participants at PodFest, I created a freebie that is now going to be available to everybody. It is titled 5 Ways to Get Your Kids to Listen Better. So if you would like that, go in the show notes and follow the link, and that resource will be yours. There are many announcements. I have another announcement in January here because it is International Child-Centered Divorce Month. And I was asked to contribute to a book called The Other Side of Divorce, Breakups That Lead to Breakthroughs. And this book will be published on January 28th, so that is just in 5 days. And you can pre-order it on Amazon today if you or someone you know needs some help finding that silver lining. Divorce doesn't have to be the end. It can also be a beginning. And along the way, we need to know how to help our kids. And so that is what I wrote about, was the child part of divorce and how you can construct your life in ways that support them and their healing and their growth. And that too, I will put a link into the show notes for you. All right, let's get into today's show and the contents about, is your child part of the 40% who struggle? You listen to that title and you're probably thinking, what is she talking about today? From the beginning, you will probably know that I am talking about speech pathology and what is going on in the United States regarding finding people to do the service. I'm going to share some things that I learned while I was studying up for that speech that I gave at PodFest. When parents talk to me, they commonly ask how I work my magic with their kids. That would be when I am working in the school and with children that need speech therapy services. But I want to remind you that when you understand how something happens and how to make the change you want, it isn't magical any longer. It's sort of like when I look at electricity or technology. You all know, if you've been listening for any length of time, that technology is something that I am struggling but continue to learn along the way. This is also when I pick up my cell phone and I think, how does this thing actually work? I don't know. And I flip a light switch and lights come on, and how does it actually work? Well, I don't know. These are because these things are just not known to me. And all of us have areas of life that we know stuff that other people don't. This may seem really obvious to you. However, when it comes to teaching speech, a lot of times parents feel like this area is so blurry, it's so ambiguous, it must be really hard, or it must be difficult to understand. That isn't true. Like everything, it's just about learning it. It is a process, it is steps, a methodology. And when it comes to communication development, speech language pathologists are the experts in that process that help our kids learn to communicate, particularly, of course, the kids that are struggling to learn it already. Let's turn our attention now to what is going on in our nation. And what is going on in our nation is that we don't have enough speech language pathologists. We simply don't meet the need, and the need is growing. According to the ASHA journals, that is the American Speech Language Hearing Association journals, there is a critical shortage of speech language pathologists that has existed for years and continues to persist across many states in our nation. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics for the United States, the job opening is expected to grow by 19%, which is one of the highest rates of growth. And what that means is the number of job positions available for people who want to go into this field. So parents, if you or your young adult children are thinking about a profession, this is a good one. They will find work. But when you are up in the 19% range, this does show that the need far exceeds the number of people available. And according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, it is nationwide. According to the National Institute of Deafness and Other Communication Disorders, which is part of the NIH, or the National Institute of Health, we have 40% of our student population who are currently struggling and need more support to develop good communication skills. That is huge, folks. 40% of our students, ages 3 to 10. I need to make sure that I highlight that. The statistics that I'm using are for ages 3 to 10, because this is the mass where kids do typically get their speech therapy services. And still, 40% is a huge portion of our students that need help to develop good communication skills. There are many reasons for that. It is partly attributed to screen time. It is attributed to parents being on the phone and not making the eye contact and one-on-one time with their kids. It's attributed to less outdoor time. It's attributed to so many, many other factors as well. Now let's stop and think about that 40%. Within that 40%, we're going to have two groups. 10% qualify for speech therapy services, while the other 30% struggle on their own. They flounder. It's up to you, mom and dad, if you know how to help them, and it's up to them to figure it out. And then the regular classrooms in the schools are the place that they are expected to pick it up along the way. But according to the NIH, these kids are really struggling. Now let's think for a moment about those kids that do qualify for professional speech pathology help, and that is that 10%. Nearly 1/3 of those kids don't get it, and that's due to the shortage. The place where the shortage is most felt is the schools. Some schools have had job postings for years without applicants. Schools don't pay as much, and there is a burnout factor for speech pathologists that work in the schools. One reason is because there isn't a cap on the number of kids that you can take. So you can have every child that has a problem that qualifies for service come through your door. I know speech therapists that have had caseloads upwards of 90, and the recommendation is 40, but there is no law to say so. But if there was a law, who determines who does not get any help? So the speech pathologists in the schools are sometimes spread really, really thin, and they do their best. Some of you are fortunate enough to find speech pathologists in private practice, or that your insurance would cover the costs of private practice. But that's not the case everywhere, and it's not even the case that there are speech therapists that are findable, particularly in rural areas. So now you know a little bit about what's going on in speech pathology and how it impacts you. But let's think about what you can do about it. When you are in a position where there are no professionals available to you and your kids, and you don't know how to make the change you want, I believe that there's a solution, and that is for our parents, and that is what propelled me to start coaching parents and create this podcast. Because I believe that parents don't need a degree in speech pathology. You only need guidance on what applies to your child. And many times your speech pathologist can help you, but a lot of times they're so busy in their classroom, they might tell you what to do, but if they are like me, and I will admit that this is what I did earlier on in my profession, I would tell the parents, do this and this and this and this and this, and I would give them 5 things. And while the parent was with me in my classroom, it all made sense. But as soon as they walk through that door and they have interaction with their child, they drive home, they get home, and then they think, what did Miss Rosenbush say? And they didn't know anymore. So what I learned was to give one piece of information at a time. And that is what I do in coaching, and let parents learn one piece at a time. And when I started having parents come to me in my classroom so that they would learn the change that they want, it was one piece, they could implement it, get good at it for the week, and then come back and we would learn a little bit more. And if you would like to hear somebody who actually experienced this, you can listen to episode 154, and that is when I interviewed one of the people that I taught in my classroom. And what I did learn with this man is that it doesn't matter the background or how little somebody actually knows about child development. Parents can teach speech. They can teach language. All they need is for somebody to give them the steps along the way. What I also find is that oftentimes parents are hesitating to do things on their own because they think, oh man, maybe I'll make this worse. I particularly see this idea when there's 2 languages involved or more, and I see it when there is speech sounds that are a struggle and fluency issues like stuttering. Those are the 3 areas where I particularly see parents hesitate. But I tell you, you can do it. Parents do make great teachers, and I feel like my job is to help you see what it is that you know how to do well, and then to help you guide you in some magic that applies to your child, and just bit by bit, and let the process strengthen your relationship with your child and boost that confidence that you have. It can be very, very fun and a strong relationship builder. Another piece of this, of course, is when your kids don't follow instructions, they don't listen. And sometimes that is that they're not able to process what they hear. You can also find strategies and learn strategies to help your kids listen better to you too, because effective strategies are effective whether a child has a processing disorder or not. If it's effective, it's effective. So in closing for today, I want you to remember that you know things that I think are like magic because I don't know that. And likewise, this podcast might have all kinds of nuggets of information that might seem kind of like magic to you. So if you're the parent of one of these 40%, and when you're listening, you probably are, This magic is available to you. Keep listening and contact me with your questions, because I want you to remember that you can make a difference for your kids. You just need to know the steps. You just need to know the process, and then you can implement it with much success. And you can get started with that freebie that is in the show notes titled 5 Ways to Get Your Kids to Listen Better. Because listening is one part of communication. And it's probably the part that parents complain the most to me about. So I hope it is helpful, and I hope this episode was informative and helped you understand what is actually going on in the speech pathology world and why it has been hard for some of you to actually get enough support or to get any support if you are in a rural area. As always, email me at hello@thelanguageofplay.com if you have any thoughts, questions to contribute. I do love hearing from listeners. Hey parents, I hope you found this episode helpful. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with a friend who also lives or works with children? I would really appreciate it if you would leave a quick review for the show on Apple Podcasts. I read every review, and it lights me up to know that this show is making a difference. Then come join my Facebook community, where you'll meet other parents who are dedicated to helping their children grow too. You'll find the link in the show notes. Thank you for joining me. Now it's time to go. Let's pop our kiddos in the strollers and go look around outdoors and see what we have to talk about.